Welcome to everyone and thanks for your time today. So the presenters will be myself and Lima Hang. The agenda for today is, first of all, we'll just give a brief overview of Pacifictech, and then we'll go into an overview of our workflow suite of products. Then we'll talk about the new developments that we've produced over the last 12 months. And then do an overview of our connected services. And then after that, we'll talk about what the future is in terms of our roadmap for the next 12 months. And then we'll go into questions after that. So just a little bit of background about Pacifictech. So we've been working with Sage customers for over 20 years to add Tier 1 capabilities to Sage 300. So really around the workflow side of things and the whole procure to pay and AP automation. But also we just focus on Sage products. And so with our connected services, so we've got service located in different locations around the world. So Australia, Canada, Johannesburg and New Zealand. And yeah, we're a global ISV, so I mean Africa has been our biggest region for quite a number of years. All right, so that's an overview of Pacifictech.
Good day, everybody. We're going to go through an overview of our workflow solutions from the Pacific side. I'm just going to have a high-level overview just to refresh the new people on board on what we actually do when we say we do workflows. Now, I'm going to start off with our first diagram over here, explaining our workflow solutions within Sage 300. So one of our big points or one of our big modules is our purchase orders or purchasing workflow. With that, you'd have your core Sage 300 PO module, which we actually overlap, and we take over a lot of the functions on that module. So you would have your purchase orders standard, which will then go into your procurement workflow. So on your procurement workflow, you would look at functions such as your requisition, your purchase order, your GRV, and your invoicing. All of those functionalities are used within our procurement workflow. Now, on our procurement workflow, we also have another module, which is our documents workflow, where we're able to attach supporting documents. Now, that documents workflow also attaches to your supplier invoices workflow. So that would be your AP section. So on your AP section, we're also able to take in invoices which are not linked to a purchase order. So if you have some invoices on a monthly basis, which go through the solution where there's no purchase order within the system, you don't necessarily have to have our procurement workflow. You can have our supplier invoice workflow where we'll be able to bring in our supplier invoices. We also have different tools such as our workflow notification, which also then goes into our master detail. So when you're doing your procurement and you have got your inventory, with our workflow notifications, you're able to have a workflow when creating an item. You're able to also have a workflow when creating a supplier or master data. This is a very good solution when you are doing procurement. It handles the procurement flow from start to finish, where if you go look at the functions within Sage 300, you are able to replicate all of these functions with our modules. So at top, you'd have your master files or your vendor catalogs, where we'd have our workflow notifications kicking in. Purchasing workflow, we'll do our purchase requisition, we'll do our purchase orders, we'll do our PO receipt. Supplier invoice would be our payables workflow, and supplier payment would be our workflow notifications as well. We're also able to attach images. So if you need to put in your supporting documents, we're able to attach images. We're also able to do a check when attaching images. So if you need to do a purchase order and the company has a policy that they need 3 quotes, we're able to run a check with our document attachments to make sure that there are 3 quotes submitted. Now, as with Sage, we all know Sage's policy on migrating to the cloud. What they want to do is they want to have our standard desktop clients where we slowly introduce connected services or cloud-enabled services, and then later on we would move them into a fully managed environment. Now, with our solution, we allow you to have PW Web. Our PW Web is our connected service where it allows people who are running your standard traditional Sage 300 on-premise to have a web portal where they can have people logging on remotely from around the globe, logging on to that portal via the web. Now, with that web portal, they're also able to do approvals via the mobile or smartphone, where we have our Pacific Go app, so that we can have full functionality when doing our approvals. How that will actually interface with our Sage 300 is you'd have your Pacific Web, which would be sitting on your Sage 300. With that, we would then have our purchasing workflow, which touches our purchase orders and will also submit information to accounts payable when the invoice is there. Our documents, our workflow documents, would be able to attach documents on that specific web portal as well. We're able to interface with project and job costing. So if you have any projects, we're able to do that. We will touch inventory, so we can have inventory items and non-inventory items. And we also do have vendor catalogs modules. So if you have got preset agreements with specific suppliers, this is specific with like the IT teams normally have set equipment for companies. We can actually create a vendor catalog from there where internal requisitioners can actually look at that vendor catalog and can select specific items to purchase. All of these procurements transactions are linked to budgets, so we're able to check if the company has sufficient budget or that specific cost center has budget. We can also link our budgets back to projects. So if we're running a project and we don't want to overspend on the project, when we're doing our requisitions, we can link all of that budgeting back to that specific project. Now, all of these modules integrate into Sage 300. Now, the reasons why you'd actually go for the Pacific Web app, you want light receiving. So if people are receiving 1 or 2 lines, they're not doing heavy receipting within the application, you may want to enable them to do the receiving remotely. So you'd actually would like that. It is very easy to deploy. So all of your deployments actually happen on the desktop. You just connect to the web portal. Another issue why you'd want to use the web portal is your Sage 300 land pack licenses. If you would like the whole organization to have the ability to generate their own requisitions, to do their own GRVs, this may be costly purely because you'd be consuming a Sage 300 land pack if you've done it within the application. However, if you go to the PW Web, we would actually charge you per interaction. So you would then be able to say, look, if one person generates a requisition once a year, I'm not going to buy a full license for that. We charge you per interactions, so you'd only pay for that interaction they approve or they enter. Approvals can be done on an Android phone, iPhones, Blackberries if you're still trying to run one. We have strong security. Now, when it comes to our security, we're very, very strong on security within Pacific. We've also recently got our ISO certification. So we're an ISO organization. So we've got very strong securities, and we've also got high availability with redundancies. I'm going to go back and discuss our workflow notifications module. The reason why I want to discuss that is everybody is familiar with our solution when it comes to AP invoices and purchases. But what I feel is something which we should be targeting as a channel is looking at our workflow and notifications. Now, with our workflow notifications, it plugs into your GL, AR, AP, OE, and IC. What it does is that it actually allows us to have workflows for standard processes within Sage 300. So when we talk about those standard processes, we are able to say, look, when somebody changes a credit limit, instead of that being a single change based on user authorities within Sage 300, we can actually run that on a workflow. If somebody makes a change of a credit limit, we would want to notify relevant people within the organization that the credit limit has either been decreased or increased. The notifications can be triggered from the solution. It is completely developed within the SDK. So when we're doing training, we don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money on training, getting people to understand that this is going to work on a workflow. The screens you use within Sage 300, or those are the screens which we use to build our solution. So you're able to say to a person, capture as normal. Their post button will be removed. All they'll have is a save button, and as soon as they click on save, it will then trigger the workflow. So it is a nice way to actually let people know that there are standard workflows within Sage 300. What we call, or what we use, is our workflow notifications module. Now, with our workflow notifications module, the workflows which can be triggered are master file setup. So creating customers, vendors, changes on customers, vendors. Within the South Africa content, we have got our BEE. We can actually make sure and we can review, instead of just putting the BEE status on an optional field, we can actually have a workflow where we can say, look, when creating the supplier, let us then review those certificates and make sure that this actually aligns with our targets. Another one which has always been asked, which we actually do, is the approval of GL journals. So if you want to approve a journal entry within Sage 300, the functionality is already there with our workflow notifications. Our workflow notifications, not only on master detail, we can also go do other transactions within Sage 300. One of the ones which we are actually looking at is actually the creation of a order where we can actually run our workflow notifications. We're also looking at doing creation of a project with our workflow notifications. We have been doing major developments. Well, we have been doing a very big push, as with every single Sage ISV. Over the last 12 months or so, we have been releasing functionality. Some of the functionality which we've been releasing when we go on a modular level. On purchasing workflow, we are proud to say that we have reached parity with desktop and web on our purchasing workflow. So when we released our web screens this year, we released our web screens in entirety. We've also released our French translation. So on our overlays, if you're using different languages, we have done that. We've also made some improvements on the module, not just releasing functionality on the web. We've made some improvements such as clearing history. If you want to see all of the improvements we've done, you can go look at the README files. It will actually show you all of those improvements. Another one which we've done is on purchasing workflow again. We've done some bug fixes, on purchasing workflow. The big one, which was common across most of our modules, was our email engine. We fixed those specific bugs. There were also some bugs which were brought in with product update 2, which were fixed within the solution. When we go to payables workflows, we've also released and completed payable workflows on the web. We've added new functionality as well. One of the new functionalities we've added is that if there's a PO and there's an invoice, we can actually then check if there's a variance, and then we can flag that. We have done some additional features like added support term codes. We've also done some bug fixes. So on our bug fixes, there has been a significant amount of bug fixes which we fixed. Most of these bugs were bugs related to going on to the new version of Sage 300. So we've actually fixed that. Again, with workflow documents, we've done some major changes with workflow documents. So with workflow documents, what we've done is we've started moving the workflow documents to actually work on workflow notifications. So we can now attach documents on your vendor and customer master files. Also, the approval of that has been made much better with our approval console containing more information. We've also have the ability to drill down within our workflow documents. There has been some bug fixes as well. Again, as I said, most of the bug fixes, the common one, which has been across most of the modules, is our emailing, which we've resolved that issue. Okay. Now, another feature which we can go through is our introduction to connected services. So when we talk about connected services, there has been a misconception. So I just want to address our solution. So with Sage 300, we have got our connected services. These are add-on features which are not found on your desktop. So with the release of version 2024, we have got our web screens, you have got your standard Sage 300. So you can actually create your purchasing workflow, your payables workflow within the desktop, within Sage 300, and you can also run that functionality within the web. Now, connected services is additional functionality which expands on what you would have had traditionally on Sage 300. One of our main connected services is our PW Web. This is when you actually want to go onto a portal instead of using Sage 300 to connect. So you want to isolate your procurement workflows from your standard Sage 300, so those users don't log on to Sage 300. They want to run on their own web portal standalone. You're able to do that with our purchasing, with our PW Web. Our PW Web, or our connected services, also expands where we have got a document processing service where we'll be doing a live demo of that a little bit later. We've also got our punch out functionality. This is where we go to e-commerce sites. We are looking at doing that within our region soon with a local partner. We'll discuss that on our roadmap. This is where instead of you going and clicking on checkout once you've done your e-commerce shopping, you can actually click on a button on the e-commerce site, which will be punch out. It will then take that specific shopping cart you have, put it in our purchasing workflow, run our approvals. Once it's been approved, we're able to then run the checkout of that specific cart on that website. So if you are buying stationery online from major suppliers, people can actually then trigger the transaction from there. We can trigger the approval of that specific transaction within our workflow element, and then we're able to close off the transaction. We've got our expense management module. So if you're running your expenses from accounts payable and you want to run the approval process on there, you can do that within our application as well. We've got our Pacific Go app. If you want to have mobile approvals of the solution, we can actually then have Pacific Go on there. All of these are additional functionalities which are only available in the cloud, which work with Sage 300. So if you want to run your Sage 300 standard on the desktop and you don't want to have any internet connectivity solutions plugging in, you're able to do that. But if you want to use modern new features, you would have those features on our connected services. Now, what are the advantages of having our PW Web? You'd want to make it easy for managers to do approvals. Most managers don't have access to Sage 300, nor do they want access to Sage 300. So having an approval console for them sitting outside of Sage 300 is a reason why you'd want to do it. The cost of having your LAN packs, if you're running it from Sage 300, is a bit high. So we can actually reduce the cost of LAN packs by saying let's use our portal outside of Sage 300 and then connect with our one user license. We've actually worked out the ratio. For every 50 users, we're looking at around about 3 LAN packs. So we can actually reduce your LAN packs significantly. All of the information is not stored on our servers. So when we're looking at data security, everything sits within Sage 300. What we do is a call onto your server. When we're performing a transaction, once we've completed the transaction, we close that call, and all of the data sits on your server. We've got infrastructure in multiple data centers, so I think we cover all of the regions. We cover the North American region, we cover the APAC region, and we cover the Europe and Africa region with our data centers in the Johannesburg region. With that, we're able to, this is a view of the console. This is where you'd actually log on to the application to do your approvals, your transactions. You're able to do substitutions. All of the functionality you get on the desktop, you've got that on the web functionality. Now, on the web console, we can also do branding. So we can have this branding looking like your organization's branding. So if you have clients or your own internal organization, we can make it branded looking like your own organization. This will be a sample of our screen when we're doing a requisition. So you'd be able to see our mobile requisitions over here. You would also get your standard approvals of your standard notifications of your documents from email over here as well. So once you've done a requisition and goes to the next person for approvals, you'd also get your emails just like you traditionally do on your desktop. All of this, as I said, is sitting on a it's on a virtualized platform in the cloud. So on this virtualized platform in the cloud, you're able to run your standard Sage 300 on-premise and use our hosting facilities within our data centers across the world to log on and do your transactions. Okay. Now, the differentiators of Pacific to others. The big differentiator is that we do not store data like some of the competitor products. All of your data is actually stored within Sage 300 within your database. So this has, when we're writing our reports, we don't necessarily need to look at 2 systems. Everything which we need to do for report writing, for auditing, etc., will sit within your Sage 300 database as your auditable source of record. All of the configuration, again, is done within Sage 300. There's no configuration you need to do on our side on the web. It's all done with you within Sage 300. It's a plug-and-play solution. The amount of training actually needed when using our console is very limited. As long as people can read, they should be able to go through the whole process. What we do with our connected services is we try to keep up to date with industry standards and norms. So when you're looking at document ingestion on automation, we try to keep up to date with that. Expense management modules, we're having functionality coming up with that. Our solution is not built on a specific standard or a specific functional specification. It's a continuously developed product, so we'll always have the latest and greatest functionality. With that, with all of our regions, we have got Bill in North America, who's able to talk to you, assist you guys with any queries you have. We have a person, myself, who's located for the Africa region, and we have a person within the APAC region. So we're very friendly people who are happy to talk to you guys. There is a person you can mail to within your region, within your time zone, to ask questions, get assistance. We've also got a very low cost of ownership because we're a consumption service. You only pay us for what you use, not necessarily for the full version of software. Okay. Now, with our AP automation, this is a big push we are making, which is doing a lot of document ingestion. So our AP automation plugs into our standard solutions as we're going. Our AP automation would be the consumption of our invoices and also taking in data electronically via Payable. So if we need to do document exchange with SAP, with the tax authority, etc., as long as they're using the Payable format, we're able to consume data and we're also able to share data using that. However, when it comes to document ingestion via PDF, we have what we call our connected services, or our DPS, document processing service. Now, on our document processing service, we have got a specific target market in Africa. As Africa is a developing economy, we can't actually say that this is a solution for everybody. It is a solution for key industries. Some of the industries which would look at using our document processing service would be the retail and e-commerce section, where they have a large number of invoices, purchase orders, etc. Especially those who do drop shipping. We can actually assist with that process by making sure that we ingest all of the supplier invoices quickly into the system. The same thing for the manufacturing. So if you've got a very complex supply chain which needs to be efficient, we can actually ingest all of those invoices for you very quickly and put them into the system. For hotels and the hospitality industry, where we have multiple branches, where we have a central supply chain team, we can actually do the ingestion of that data very quickly. Then we have consultants or organizations which have extremely small financial teams. We're very good at that. So instead of employing new staff, we can actually automate the solutions and go digital. And then obviously would be IT professionals, the guys who want the latest and greatest in tech. We're able to give it to them immediately with our solution. The reasons why you'd want to automate your solution is increased efficiency and speed. So with us, we're able to ingest a document within seconds. It will possibly take people a minute or so to capture. We do it in seconds. Reduced errors, because we actually program the document to be read. So we actually will read it. It takes us around about 5 or 6 transactions to program it. Once it's programmed, we're able to reduce the number of errors. So those finger errors of putting in an extra 0 and paying somebody 10,000 Rand instead of 1,000 Rand, we actually can eliminate that or reduce it and make it to 0. We can provide visibility of what needs to be done. So instead of having those shelves where suppliers drop off all of their invoices and they pile up, and then somebody needs to capture this pile of invoices, if it comes in via email, we can actually give you a full list of all of the invoices which were received that day, how many of them have been ingested into the system and running into the workflow. So you have full visibility. It's a pity that governments are not using this, because we can guarantee using this, you can actually pay your suppliers faster and maintain stronger relationships. The last reason you'd want to go for your AP automation is scalability. No one wants to actually grow their staff count as the business grows. We want to do more with less. So with our AP automation, it allows us to increase the volumes of transactions which need to be processed without necessarily increasing our cost in our staff. I'm going to leave it to Jamie to give you a live demo of how we'd actually ingest these documents. Jamie?
All right, thanks, Limos. I'll just show my screen. So hopefully, can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes.
I will presume you can, yeah, cool. All right, so here's our Sage desktop. So you can see our module here, Payables Workflow. So what I've got here, so if we come into Payables Workflow, you can see it's laid out like all the other Sage modules. So if we look under PA Setup, So we've got our authority levels and our users. So this is where we set up our delegated authorities. And then if we just come and look at the workflows quickly, so you can see how this is set up. So it's very similar to purchasing workflow. So within South Africa and the rest of Africa, we've got a large number of customers using purchasing workflow, but compared to other regions, there's much less of this AP automation within Africa. So anyway, this is, but all the same concepts apply from purchasing workflow, apply to payables workflow. So you can see here, this invoice goes from, first of all, goes to the cost center manager, and then once they approve it, then it checks a certain dollar value, or it could check their delegated authority if you want to. You've got all these different steps that you can implement, step types. And then, but in this case, it checks a specific value, which is $100. And then it goes, and if it's over $100, it goes to a second approver. And then it will push it across into AP. So the whole payables workflow is, it's like a front end or a register for AP or PO. All right, so that's just showing you the workflows. So what you can do, if I just show you the transactions area, so there's two transactions that you can enter manually. So you can either enter an AP invoice, or you can enter a PO invoice. So they're the two types of AP invoices. So if I just open those up and if I open this one up and just show you a transaction that's already there, we obviously don't have much time to do a full demo, so we're just trying to show you the highlights really quickly. So here's an invoice that's been put in. So it looks very much like an AP invoice entry within the AP module, but there's some critical or really significant differences. So here you can see the workflow in the cost center. So every invoice has to have a workflow that it travels through, and it has to have a cost center that sort of tells it what part of the organization that the invoice belongs to. So those are two very important fields. And here is workflow documents. So this is where you can attach your invoice image, and you can attach an unlimited number of files. So here you can see is the invoice PDF, but you can also attach anything else that's relevant. So it could be PDF or Word or Excel or bitmaps. So this is like, it's a sort of a mini document management system that relates to each invoice. So that lets you get the whole paperless AP. And so in lots of regions, Australia, New Zealand, North America, this paperless AP has been a huge area that companies have got efficiencies from over the last few years. Right, and the other extra tab that you'll see is workflow events. So this is the whole audit trail. So this one here doesn't look like it's got an audit trail because it's just in an entered status. Oh yeah, that's the one I'm going to come to in a little bit. But if we look at some of these previous ones, if we come into the workflow events, you can see here that this is like the audit trail of what's happened on this invoice. So you can see it was so submitted on a certain date and time by this person and their Windows user and their IP address. Then it went to the cost center manager. That person approved it. So then it checked a certain dollar value. It was over that. So then it went to the controller for another approval. And then it pushed it through to accounts payable. So the workflow events is the whole audit trail of who approved an invoice. Right, so your staff or your companies can use this to go to fully paperless. So that delivers really big benefits on its own. Yeah, there's no storage, and people can find invoices much quicker. But the real sort of even bigger benefit on top of that is the automated data capture. And this is where we've got a lot of customers that are getting some really good benefits from this. And so this ties into that infographic that Lemo showed before. where the invoices. So this is basically, the DPS console is the landing page within Sage 300. So an invoice gets emailed to the customer's mailbox. It then goes through, they then forward it to our mailbox that's on our servers in Johannesburg. The system then does the data extraction out of that PDF and then creates this draft invoice within the screen here, the DPS console. So this is really like this is replacing the old in tray that the AP staff used to have, with all the paper invoices. This is the electronic equivalent of it. So these are invoices that have come in, no one's touched them. So they've been emailed to the customer mailbox, they've gone through all of those steps that I just described, and they arrive within this DPS console. And so you can see here, so we've got sort of 8 or 10 invoices here. If we look at this one, this is one I emailed in about an hour or so before we started the session. So you can see it's got the invoice number, it's got the vendor number and the vendor name and the workflow and the cost center and the date and the dollar value. So that's all that header information. So what AP would normally do is double click and open that up. And so now they can see that information on the left-hand side, but they can also see the PDF on the right-hand side. So this was what was emailed in, and this is what the system has extracted out from that. So it's got the invoice number. For the vendor number, the system will do, normally it'll use a tax number. So in Australia, it's an ABN, New Zealand is GST number. I can't remember in South Africa if it's a VAT number or something like that, but it's any sort of tax identifier is what it uses. So it reads that from the PDF, so it's 987654222. The software then comes over to the vendor master file. And because we're all very tightly integrated with Sage 300, so I happen to know it's 2800, but what the system did was it came and did a search of all the vendors for 987654222, and that's how it found out that vendor number. Right, so that's the vendor number. Then the workflow and the cost center, they can be defaulted from the vendor or they can be left blank. If you leave them blank, then AP need to just populate them. So the whole idea, what a lot of our clients are saying is the system does sort of 80 to 90% of the work that the AP people used to do in terms of data entry. But now the AP staff, they now need to, the system won't be perfect. So AP, it's very important that they review what the system has captured and they can make any changes. Or let's say if we didn't want to have a default cost center, if this vendor provides invoices that relates to a lot of different cost centers, then in that case you'd have no default, and so then AP would come in and choose the cost center. Then we've got the document total, which is out of the PDF. And we've got the date of the invoice, and we've got the date that it was received as well. I'm running all this on our Toronto server, so that's why it's in the US date format. So it's got the date and the time the invoice was received, and then we've got the line information down here. All right, so AP can review or edit any of this. So AP are not limited in any way. And so now they make any changes, they click process. This takes them through to what we call the second screen, which is where the GL coding is and the taxes. So we've got distribution sets, so we support all of the distribution sets, and clients that find that's really valuable when they use that as part of AP automation. So I'll just delete those there, but here we've brought through our lines. And it's attached the PDF automatically, so that just saves the customer a lot of time. Their AP staff, it attaches it automatically. If there's any different taxes, so that the AP can just, if something's 0 rated, they can just come and change that. And if they're happy with that, they click on submit. Oh, right, I didn't, oops. Oh, I'm logged in as the wrong person as well, actually, but anyway. So yeah, so I'm logged in as someone who doesn't have access to geocode, so which is actually quite a good example of, we've got all of these controls that are in place to, you know, just follow all the right controls. I should just change that, I guess, to AP. So open it up, check that the data extraction has been done properly. We're happy, click process, which takes us to the second screen. So attach the PDF. It's worked out all the default GL codes. It uses all the distribution sets. And now I've got access because I'm AP, so I can put in GL codes. But most of our clients have the GL codes all defaulting, so this is just a step that AP don't need to do, or they just adjust the GL codes that need adjusting. And if they're happy with it, they click submit. Now it's going into the process. Oh, what's happening there? Some other tax issue. There's a little bit of a shame. Oh, sorry, I'm just using a new test environment here. Sorry, demo environment, which I should obviously get some of this stuff sorted out. But anyway, the idea is to push the invoice into the workflow, and then it goes through the approval process. And then it's completed here, so we click refresh, and now it disappears off this EPS console because it's now gone through the approval process. Right, so these invoices, so we've got some really powerful tools so that AP can look at all of the invoices that are traveling through the approval process. So we've got the management inquiry. They can come in, you can see a status of in process. So if they click the go button, this shows us all of the invoices that are traveling through the workflow. They can double click and open them up and see who's already approved them by coming to the workflow events. So that gives them visibility across all of the system. But then if a vendor rings up, we've also got the vendor activity screen. So we can come in, this is the screen from AP, but we've added this extra tab. So we can come and look at all of, so if a vendor rings up, we can come and look at all of the invoices, find out which one they're calling us about, and we can see it sitting with the division manager. All right, so yeah, really good visibility across the whole system, good visibility for AP, and then these invoices travel through to GL, so you can then drill down from your general ledger and drill all the way back to the invoice. And then we should just, probably if we look at a previous year, again, maybe my data might be a little bit not lined up properly. But you can just drill from your GL transactions, drill all the way back to the AP invoice, and then back to our payables workflow, look at the PDF and look at the approvals. So yeah, so it's really finance, save a lot of time. The auditors, from an auditing point of view, they can just have all that information available to them. So yeah, really just lots of benefits and a really quick payback for putting in the system. All right, so that's really the end of that demo there. So I had a couple of hiccups, which using my new demo environment, which I'll get those fixed up in the next week or so. So we'll now hand it back to Limo.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen? So
Yep,
we
sure
will
can.
go into our roadmap. On our roadmap, where our roadmap is based on a 12-month cycle. We're not as ambitious as Sage doing 3 years. Let's do 12 months. So on our 12 months, this would be our roadmap. So on our roadmap, when we're looking at procure to pay, we're looking at getting our punch out working with Amazon. And we're also looking at getting it working with Massmart in South Africa. So that would mean that if I need to go buy some stuff from Macro, say for instance, tea, milk, stationery, etc., as a staff member, I would log on to the Macro's website. I would go do shopping like I would do on e-commerce. However, when instead of clicking checkout, I would click punch out and it will push the transaction into our purchasing workflow. From there, we're able to do the approval. Once approved, we would automatically check it out. There has been a huge push for an RQF process, a request for quotes. So we are actually developing that. We are looking at releasing that in the first quarter of next year. We're currently having a functional specification, which we're engaging with a couple of our clients. And based on the feedback on that functional specification, the development will then proceed. What we're also looking at workflow notifications is we want to get the web screens up and running. It is our only module which isn't up and running on the web screens. So we are actually looking at getting into parity with the web screens and desktop, and we want to resolve that by Q1 next year, where we're on parity. E-invoicing, in our region, it is not the e-invoicing we see in Kenya, Zambia, Malawi. This is with the Payable format. What we want to do is messaging back. On our expense management, we're going to be having the creation of the GRV on the mobile app. We also want to have on our mobile app, the PT-Go app. We want to have biometric login because of our securities, that it being very critical. We want to have the ability to log on via biometrics. We also want to add the approvals of GRVs, as we said. We're going to be doing some enhancements when we look at our security layer on the desktop and on the web portal as well. We're also doing ongoing research on AI. We want to see how AI will affect your procure to pay cycle and how we can actually leverage of generative AI and also large data sets, managing large data sets with AI. For next year, if we look at Q3, Q4, what we were looking at is having a customer and a vendor portal. On that vendor portal, because we want to go completely procure to pay, where it is paperless from start to finish, instead of having a vendor registration form, what we want to have by next year, Q3, Q4, is a vendor portal where vendors will be able to register themselves, pushing in information into our workflow engines for approval before it hits Sage 300. We also want vendors to be able to maintain their own catalogs, where if they are supplying specific information for you, when you click on our RFQ button and you run an RFQ, it should automatically be able to pull up all of the items which vendors have said. We're aligning with Sage's authentication and licensing module. So hopefully we'll get rid of the activation keys, and we'll also be able to track which instance of Pacific is actually licensed, not licensed. It's no longer going to be a manual process. So we also want to align with that as well. With that, on our desktop with version 2026, desktop to web, we hope to actually beat Sage to be 100% compatible with the web screen. So our feature functionality before 2026, we hope, will be 100% compatible with the web screens, but we are aiming to meet Sage's deadline, where on 2026 we'll have full parity with the web screens. We also want to have the ability to attach documents on GL entries, the ability to edit GL codes on our Pacific Go app. So when you're approving and it's expensed incorrectly to the GL, we want you to be able to have the ability to change that. On this roadmap, it is not a fixed roadmap. It's a living roadmap. This is our plan. However, if there are any challenges when it comes to compliance or regulatory issues within a region, we may have to move out some features on our roadmap to make sure that we're always compliant and we meet all of the regulatory requirements.
Good, so thanks everyone for your time. That's the main thing. We really appreciate it.
On my side, thank you for all your time, guys. If you guys would like a personalized demo session of our AP automation, please feel free to contact me. I'm able to come on site and do personalized demos for you and your clients of our solutions.